Hey guys, welcome to my channel Mewtwo Unboxing. Today something slightly different other than the Topps products. I'm actually going to be opening up a Top Trumps F1 pack. But the question is, who is the greatest? We may find out in this video. Okay, so before we get into today's video, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has been liking and subscribing to the channel. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully we're going to get to 300 subscribers very shortly, which is awesome, and then we can head our way to the 1,000 mark where we can start doing live videos, and then I'll be able to do live unboxings with you guys whilst you watch, which would be absolutely awesome. But today we are going to be looking at these Grand Prix Hero Top Trumps. Who is the greatest? I bought this, I saw them in the shop, and I thought, do you know what? I'll have a go at them. So let's pop it open. We've got this nice packaging, this nice foil around it. We're going to try and carefully rip these open. Now, I was considering, when obviously PSA opens back up, sending some of these in. I don't know if people get Top Trump cards graded, but I thought, why not give it a go? So let's have a little run through of what you get within this pack. So we start off with the logo. Then we have also available, so a little advert for another game. Oh, and it starts off with Lewis Hamilton himself, year born 1985, starts 250, podiums 251, championship 6. So obviously this is a year and a bit behind. Top Trump rating 97. Ooh, I wonder if anyone's got higher than that. Sebastian Vettel, born in 1987, Top Trump 93. Daniel Ricciardo, rating 92. Australians' fan favourite Daniel Ricciardo has an impressive history of wins and an irresistible smile. Max Verstappen, championships 0, born in 1997. So he's a lot younger than the others. Formula 1 debut without a driving licence. He participated in his first Grand Prix aged just 17. Valtteri Bottas, he looks pretty miserable in there. I don't blame him. He ain't won nothing. Charles Leclerc, top rating 90. I wonder how they rate him versus Verstappen. They're saying Verstappen's 92, so saying Charles Leclerc's better. Max Verstappen's better, sorry. Kimi Raikkonen in the Alfa Romeo, rating 92. Jesus. The Finnish Formula 1 world champion is definitely... I think Kimi Raikkonen is a really good personality in the sport. But actually, his only one world title was because Lewis Hamilton and Alonso were going at it, and they were taking points from each other. And also Hamilton had that crash in China where he went into the pits and then sandpitted himself. So... that's the only reason I believe Kimi Raikkonen is a world champion. Now, you need to be in it to win it, and you need to be there, and he was there. But I think that year should have gone to Lewis Hamilton. I think he won by 1 point, if I remember correctly. So I don't rate him highly as a overtaking and race-winning driver, but his personality in Formula 1 is great. But that's my opinion, and I'm going to trigger some of you watching this. We have Sergio Perez. 86. It's about right, I suppose, for Sergio. He went into McLaren years ago. I'm going years back now. I've been watching Formula 1 for years. He went into McLaren years ago, and they gave him a bit like a Max Verstappen back then, and sort of a shot at being at a top team really early on, and he didn't perform. So he got demoted, and since then he's been in the mid-pack. And now, obviously, he's gone to Red Bull where he's matured, but he's still, I would say, he's not quite there still. Carlos Sainz, really highly rated driver. He's only got a rating of 84, so saying Sergio Perez is better. I disagree with that. I think Carlos Sainz, even though he hasn't been in it that long, I think he's one to watch out for in the future. Robert Kubica, obviously he was highly rated, but then had a massive accident. Huge accident it was. He hit the wall so hard. And he actually damaged all the muscle within his hand and down his arm. So they didn't think he'd ever come back to Formula 1. But Williams gave him a try. Obviously, it was more, I would say, a publicity stunt. It was to draw attention to, obviously, Williams as a team, as opposed to his performance, I believe. Roman Grosjean, obviously the man that escaped the fire just recently. They're rating him 86. Michael Schumacher, top trump. He's got the little top trump tyre. He has got a top rating of 99. So I would imagine, unless they've given someone else other than Michael Schumacher or Lewis Hamilton 100, which I doubt, maybe Senna. Maybe Senna's in here. Starts 306, podiums 155, championships 7, which Hamilton has now equalled. Michael Schumacher is one of the greatest stars of Formula 1. In his career, he became a legend and entered the motorsporting canon as one of the greatest drivers in history. He is 7-time world champion and holds the most records of any driver. This athlete achievements demonstrates that enough hard work you can climb to the top and realise your dreams. I believe, and this is gonna again trigger some of you out there. I used to love watching. I hated Michael Schumacher. I hated him, but it's sort of like a love-hate relationship. I loved what he did in the car. I loved his passion, his aggression, his overtaking, his ability to drive in the wet. Loved all of that about him. But I was a McLaren fan, so I hated him week in, week out. He'd win all the time. A bit like what we're seeing with Lewis Hamilton now. But what I will say is there has been several incidences where Michael Schumacher has won a championship or won a race or whatever because of something that I would say is quite unsportsmanly, if you like. So an example would be obviously the famous when Barrichello slowed right down for him right towards the end and left it right to the finish line, and then Schumacher overtook him right at the end. Barrichello should have won that day. There was another time where he crashed into his nearest rival. I believe it was Nigel Mansell. Was it Nigel Mansell or Damon Hill? He crashed him out on purpose so that way he would guarantee to win the title, which is... And then there was another time where he had a penalty, but he didn't take it because there wasn't a rule in place at the time that you had to take the penalty within so many laps. So he just left it and then went through the drive-through. But the drive-through where their pit lane was crossed the finish line. So he actually done his penalty and then finished the race. So there's a few instances where you could say, okay, well, he didn't cheat. I wouldn't say that because that's a very harsh word in the world of sports. But he definitely looked to take advantage of any situation. Now, fast forward that to today's standards or to today's what you would consider the greatest drivers of all time. I believe Max Verstappen will probably do things like that because he just seems to have that aggression and like, why aren't I winning, sort of thing. Lewis Hamilton, on the other hand, I have never, as far as I'm concerned, and you can comment down below, and I know this might start off some arguments in the comment section, I have never seen Lewis Hamilton do anything unsportsmanly. Now, he has won because of luck, don't get me wrong. There was a time where Ferrari were due to win, but safety car came out and Lewis Hamilton got in just before it and stuff like that. Like, there's been times where Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari crashing into each other. There's been times where Lewis Hamilton's been really lucky, and I put my hands up to that. There's some championships that Lewis Hamilton probably didn't deserve to win, someone else did. I mean, even when he won his first one, when Tim McGlock was slowing down because it just started to rain, just on the last lap of the last corner of the last race. That is pure sporting luck. But I haven't seen him do anything malicious. That's what I'm trying to say. And I've seen Michael Schumacher doing a few things. Now, it seems harsh criticising someone that's obviously very ill at the moment. But That's my opinion. And even when he came back to Mercedes before Lewis Hamilton joined, there was a chance, again with, I think it was Barrichello, where Barrichello was in the Williams and he was in the Mercedes. It might have been China. I can't remember. There was one of the races where there's a big, thick concrete wall down the pit straight. And he pretty much pushed them into the wall. And the car had to quickly get out of the gap and then go right off. And they were like, you know, he could have killed him, you know. And there was no need for it. I think he was fighting for 10th or something. So he just has this inherent, obviously, aggression in him. And I don't think he can help that. And I don't think it'll ever change. And he came back to Formula One because he said that he wanted to change people's opinion about him. And it was working. I started watching him in interviews. He was always smiling. He was like, yeah, hopefully we'll finish 10th today. Hopefully we'll get a point. And I thought, oh, he's doing really well. And he was actually outperforming. I don't think he outperformed him, but he was up to par with Nico Rosberg. It was a completely German team. Done really well for his age and how long he's had out of the sport. But then there was that one incident, and I thought, he hasn't changed. When push comes to shove, he hasn't changed. So that's my opinion on Michael Schumacher, and I haven't seen that from Lewis Hamilton. And the day that Lewis Hamilton does something like that, I'll be really disappointed. If he won a world title because he done something malicious to Max Verstappen or something like that, I'd be more gutted for Lewis Hamilton than I would be happy that he's won. So that's my opinion on the two greatest drivers. Let me know your thoughts. Comment down below if you agree with me on certain things. If you disagree with me, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Right, anyway, Mika Hakkinen. So Mika Hakkinen was my guy. He was my guy. He was the guy that I watched as a kid. I used to love watching McLaren. Obviously, their engine partner back then was Mercedes. So in theory, I've always been McLaren or Mercedes supporters. So when Lewis Hamilton went to Mercedes, there's been a couple of times where I thought, oh no, Lewis Hamilton might go to Ferrari or Red Bull and I'll have to start supporting them and then I'll just look like a glory hunter. But no, I've always supported McLaren actually. Mika Hakkinen and David Coulthard were my two guys. Supported them for many years. Had a David Coulthard Scottish hat because he was the only British driver. Obviously, I was drawn to him straight away. But I used to really like Mika Hakkinen. He had that sort of cool vibe. You know, he was a bit like Kimi Räikkönen. Said it how it was. But I believe his driving capabilities were on par with Michael Schumacher's. And if he had the dominant team like Michael Schumacher had, or if him and Michael Schumacher were in the same car, say they both drove for a Ferrari, I think it would have been 50-50 week in, week out. Yeah, obviously it would have caused tension. They wouldn't be able to work together, but that's my opinion on them two. Ayrton Senna. Now, Ayrton Senna was actually just before my time. Before I was a little boy, little Glenn, watching Formula One. Everyone used to obviously talk about Ayrton Senna. Obviously, I missed that whole era. It was just before my time. But obviously I've enjoyed going back and watching like the Ayrton Senna movie and watching documentaries about him. There's a lot of stuff on Sky that they've done about Ayrton Senna, and I enjoy going back and watching those and watching obviously again his passion, his aggression, but also he had very strong certain values, family values and respect and team sport and stuff like that, and I really enjoy watching that about him. But obviously Lewis Hamilton considers him one of the greats, and if he didn't pass away, who knows how many titles he could have achieved or how many races or podiums he would have got. We don't know, but yeah, clearly one of the greatest of all time. Because if the people that you feel are saying, you know, if I think that Lewis Hamilton's the greatest of all time and he's saying, well, actually Ayrton Senna is, then you have to respect that, because that's who he looked up to and that's who he's inspired to be like. And obviously Michael Schumacher and all the other greats, they all praise how well Ayrton Senna drove. Alain Prost, he one of the biggest rivals to Ayrton Senna at the time, and he was one of the biggest French drivers and still is to this day, I believe. He has 199 starts, he has 106 podiums, he had 4 championships. So although people talk about Ayrton Senna's 3 championships And a lot of drivers come into Formula One, when they win a championship, they always talk about this like, oh, I'd like to achieve 3 championships. That seems to be like, for someone who's like the top of their game, that's what they aim for at first. I've noticed they all mention, and I'm sure if Max Verstappen wins this year, he'll start talking about, well, I want to win at least 3 championships. I don't know why. That seems to be like a barrier that they next go to after they win their first one. But he achieved 4, so he's achieved more than a lot of the others out there. On par with Sebastian Vettel. Niki Lauda, obviously, if you've watched some of the movies out there regarding his time, he had arguably the greatest sporting comeback of all time. Obviously, had a horrific accident, burnt half his face, but then he came back and actually won a world championship. So that is awesome on his behalf, and I think he should always, and he was pioneering to helping Lewis Hamilton get to Mercedes and driving the Mercedes team forward to where they're at today. So you got to say, even in his retirement, he was still pioneering, you know, the winning form in Formula One. So yeah, definitely one of the greats of all time. James Hunt, again, before my time, I have to say, so I can't pretend I'm this great historian. I know from where I started watching onwards, James Hunt, though, was considered one of the coolest, most popular figures in the paddock. He was known as a ladies' man, and he was very flamboyant, if you like. Obviously, yeah, his rival was Niki Lauda, according to the films and the documentaries. But yeah, he won one world championship. His total rating is 92, so a bit below some of the other greats out there, but still one of the most popular names in the Formula One paddock. Gilles Villeneuve, Canadian. Didn't win any championship, but considered one of the greatest. A score of 91. He had 67 starts and 13 podiums. Villeneuve is a textbook example of how raw talent does not necessarily equate to recognition or reward. Fans loved Villeneuve not only for his exceptional commitment to amazing performances behind the wheel of the Crimson Ferraris, but also for his extraordinary loyalty to the Italian team. Nigel Mansell. I love listening to Nigel Mansell talk whenever he critiques anyone in Formula One. I have a real respect for Nigel Mansell. Obviously does a lot of work with Silverstone. I believe he's one of the BRDC owners. This badge that's, oh no, has he got it? He hasn't got it on now, but he always wears like this BRDC badge now. But yeah, he was considered one of the greats, and I still obviously watch some of the clips of when he won Silverstone and everyone was jumping on his car and stuff, and then everyone came off and cheered him, and that was great, awesome scenes. Manuel Fangio, he won 5 world titles. I remember when Lewis Hamilton had only won 3 or 4, and everyone was saying, you know, you could be as successful as Fangio, and he was like, nah, I don't think I will be. I don't think I'll achieve that many, and now obviously it's surpassed him. But you can't take away all those years ago when Formula One was so dangerous, like so many people had car crashes and died in Formula One. Then you have this guy come along and win 5 championships without dying. So you know, it's you have to give him huge respect for the way he drove. I don't think there's been an Argentinian driver for a while, I don't think. Off the top of my head, unless someone wants to correct me, I don't remember seeing an Argentinian Formula One driver for many years now. Jim Clark and the Green Lotus. The pair dominated F1 tracks in the 1960s. The humble Scotsman is one of the greatest and most liked British Formula One drivers. He still holds the record for the number of Grand Slams won, i.e. wins after starting from pole position, covering the entire distance at the head and obtaining the best lap time. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. He had 72 starts, 32 podiums, and he won 2 World Championships, and he's got a rating of 93, so he's right up there. Jackie Stewart. I like hearing Jackie Stewart to this day. Obviously, he always wears the little cap and the checkered trousers. He had 99 starts in Formula 1. You sort of wonder why he didn't try and go for that 100th. He had 43 podiums, so that is a massive conversion rate. 99 starts to 43 podiums. And he won 3 championships. So well done to Jackie. He's obviously always going to go down as one of the greats. He got a rating of 92. I'm going to struggle to pronounce this. Emerson Ilpaddle Paladi. I can't pronounce that. I'm sorry to anyone watching this that is a fan. He won 2 World Championships. He had 144 starts and 35 podiums. The Brazilian began his career with a motorcycle racing as a mechanic. I can't pronounce it properly. Once I hear it once, I'll be alright. But he won Formula 1 World Championship and the Indianapolis 500 twice each. He is one of the best F1 drivers in history and certainly one of the most popular. I don't hear his name being mentioned too much for years I haven't heard his name. We've got Nelson Piquet Sr. Obviously there was Junior who came in. Hasn't been in it since there was that big scandal where he supposedly purposely cheated for Fernando Alonso. He's had 204 starts, 60 podiums, and he won 3 World Championships. 3-time world champion Nelson Piquet Soto Major dreamed of becoming an engineer or tennis player in his youth. Fortunately for motorsports fan, he had a flair for mechanics, which he later then used prepared cars for racing. He is known for perfecting his vehicle to achieve a technical advantage over his rivals. I didn't know that either. So Sterling Moss. Now, he never actually won a world title, but he was always considered like one of the nicest guys and one of the greatest drivers. Whenever you hear about great drivers, you always hear Sterling Moss' name get brought up, but he never actually won a title. One of the biggest idols in the early Formula 1 period, British driver Sir Sterling Moss is known as the untitled world champion. He is one of the greatest drivers of all time. Although he never reached the championship, his legacy is beloved by fans, experts and drivers. Alberto Ascari, a brave Italian who achieved a lot to desire a short career, excelled when he took the lead and other drivers struggled to overtake him. His career was checkered with adversity, from bad luck to technical malfunctions. Were it not for this, the 2-time world champion could have easily won more titles. That is a shame when someone's at the top of their game and they're just held back by mechanical issues. I see that a lot with Fernando Alonso and Max Verstappen, obviously, because Fernando Alonso seems to jump from team to team over the last few years. He's been sort of in the mid-pack field and he has had lots of technical issues, like cars breaking down. Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, I'd say at the minute is quick, but for the last few years hasn't been as reliable. It seems to always break down. So I think Max Verstappen could have achieved a lot more podiums if it weren't for the Red Bull's unreliability, in my opinion. Fernando Alonso is known by experts as one of the best and most well-rounded Formula 1 drivers in history of the sport. The Spaniard won the Formula 1 Championship twice and won the prestigious 24-hour Le Mans. Alonso is also famous for his strong character and has always inspired trepidation and respect from other drivers. Yeah, his antics off track have always, I would say, plagued him. If he just sort of did his talking on the track, he probably would still be in the top team now. But obviously there was whole controversy with McLaren, and then he went to Ferrari, did really well for Ferrari for a few years, but then apparently had a huge row with the bosses there and left. Then he went to, I think he went back to Renault, and then McLaren, then Renault, and then he retired, and then he came back to still Renault, but Alpine they've changed to. So if he didn't chop and change so much, maybe, but that's his personality, that's his character, and that's what made him so good to watch. So I suppose we wouldn't change it. Jenson Button, he won one world championship. That was with Braun GP when they came out with the, I think it was the rear blown diffuser. They were like the first team to bring that out, or the twin diffuser or something like that, which they all have now. But Jenson Button really took that, and it was also Barrichello, so he was up against Barrichello, and I sort of feel for Barrichello because that was really his chance to prove that he could have beat Mark Schumacher, but he didn't quite do it. Jenson Button, one of the greatest races I ever saw. I actually watched in Portuguese, like the commentating, and didn't understand a word they were saying, but I understood that Jenson Button, because I was on holiday at the time, and that's the only way I could watch it. Jenson Button went from, I think he was completely last. I think it was, was it the Canadian Grand Prix? He was completely last. And then not only that, they stopped the race due to weather. So then this race went on for like 4 or 5 hours. Stopped the race. Then they started again. And then I think he had another instance. He was back at the grid again. So he'd worked his way up a little bit and then went back to the back of the grid again. And then worked his way all the way back up to second, and then he was really putting pressure on Vettel, who was winning the race at the time, and Vettel spun out, and then Jenson Button won the whole race from the back of the grid. It was one of the greatest drives I've ever witnessed, but that was one particular race. He done really well for that, and he's just a really nice guy in the sport. I love hearing him I love it when he's on Sky Sports. Obviously, he seems to say all the right things to all the drivers, and he has massive respect. Felipe Massa. Now, I wouldn't consider Felipe Massa as one of the greatest of all time. I don't know why he's in this list, but yeah, he was up against Lewis Hamilton the second year, 2008, I'm going to say it was. But I think that was more because he had the better car. Personally, I think Lewis had the second best car, and Massa, it was between Massa and Hamilton towards the end, but I don't know. I wouldn't consider him one of the greats, but a good driver nonetheless, and he was in the sport for many years. Felt really bad when he had that incident with the spring that hit him in the head. Nico Rosberg. Now, Nico Rosberg's an odd one, actually, because he performed very well all through his junior career. Then obviously eventually got into Formula 1, done pretty well. He was always scoring points. He was always finishing, unless there was a mechanical issue. Then he was paired up with Michael Schumacher, which we've already seen in this list is considered the greatest driver of all time. And I admit that Michael Schumacher had retired and he'd had a couple of years out of the sport. But Nico Rosberg was outperforming him. I think in that year he actually finished on the podium, or I know he got a pole position, but I can't remember if he actually took that to a race win. But whereas Michael Schumacher struggled. So, Nico Rosberg, great talent. Then he went up against Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes, and for a couple years on the bounce, Hamilton got the best of him. Then there was one particular year, Lewis Hamilton had quite a few mechanical issues, but then so did Rosberg. So I feel that season was pretty fair. And Rosberg done it in the end. But what he realised is, in that year, that Lewis Hamilton dedicates 100% of his life to Formula 1. Now, Nico Rosberg, on the other hand, has a wife, and I think he had a kid, and I think maybe he had another one on the way. And he said that I can't do that again. I can't do another year of not seeing my family, not seeing friends, playing mind games with Lewis Hamilton year in, year or week in, week out. So he said, that's it, I retire. So he retired winning the championship. So he won one world championship. Massive respect for him for beating Lewis Hamilton. Everyone's, we've already seen in this list, Lewis Hamilton's considered one of the greatest of all time. But Nico Rosberg beat him fair and square within a year. So That's my opinion on Nico Rosberg. Shame he isn't in the sport still to this day. And he's the last card. So it says here, collect 5 other cards. This is for some other games. But that's it. That's the Formula 1 top trumps. What do you guys think? I know this video's been a bit longer than what I normally do. I try and aim for 10 to 12 minute videos, but you can't talk about the greatest Formula 1 drivers of all time without giving your views or opinions. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pick out my favourites, which are going to be... Let's just do this now, actually. I don't know why Roman Grosjean's in there. I have to say, probably the weakest. I wonder if he's the lowest score. Probably the weakest driver in here, I believe, in my opinion. Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. They're probably the cards that if I can send these in to get PSA graded, I will. Hence why I'm trying to be really careful with them. These are the ones that I'd get graded. The rest I wouldn't. But what I may do is put these on the eBay store, the ones that are remaining individually, because I'm sure someone out there may be a huge Nico Rosberg fan and they might want to get a Nico Rosberg card graded. But these are all packed fresh and it looks like they're cut nicely. It looks like the centering is pretty good on all of these. So yeah, I'll see if I can send those in. That's my little grading pile. Let me know what you think about this top trump set and what you feel about who is the greatest. So the way that this pack is rated, it's Michael Schumacher, then Lewis Hamilton. Who was the third person? I didn't keep an eye on the scores. Mika Hakkinen was up there. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you've got to say. Please comment down below, or you can add me on any of the social medias that you'll see just to the side of me here. Facebook. Obviously you're on YouTube already, and Twitter, all with the name Mewtwo Unboxing. If you'd like to purchase any of the cards that I'm about to list on eBay, my eBay link is in the description or in this bar along the side here. But yeah, all the links can be found down below. Before you leave this video, please, if you could just smash that like button for me, it really helps the channel grow. And if you're new to this channel, why not consider subscribing, and we can have more discussions about who is the greatest or not Formula 1 driver of all time. That's it from me, guys. I'll see you on the next video. Bye.